Good morning, welcome. My name is Cristina Cilacu, I'm a journalist, and we will have a conversation with the United States Ambassador in Romania, Mrs. Kathleen Kavalec. Thank you for being with us, and because it's a conversation, as I said, I would welcome everyone to join us, to engage. Ambassador, let's start, not to waste any time, because we don't have much. We have two ongoing wars. Two democracies were attacked, one by Russia, the other one by a terrorist organization. And the United States is helping both of them to get over it, to stand by them. Is helping one of these two democracies, either Ukraine or Israel, damage the help for the other one?
Well, first of all, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Cristina, for doing this event with me, and I'm delighted to be here at this event. Regarding the situation in these two conflicts right now, I mean, I think as President Biden put it very clearly, you know, we, the United States, are in a position to help with both conflicts, and we will. And we will stand by both Ukraine and Israel in this very difficult moment. I mean, I think for all of us, the decisions that we make today will shape the future for decades to come. And it's important that we stand by democracies that have been attacked, that we work together as allies and partners to defend our values in this critical moment in time. I think all of us, you know, in Ukraine, you all know what we have done and said in support of Ukraine. President Biden has said we will support Ukraine for as long as it takes, and that has not changed. I think all of us recognize at the same time the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian people, and we support equal measures of justice and freedom for Israelis and Palestinians. But Hamas does not represent these aspirations, and in this moment we have to stand for the democratic values that are under attack in this situation. I think we can do both those things, and we need to do both those things together with our partners and allies.
And do you think, Ambassador, that the partners in the region, I'm talking now about the Middle East, understand these efforts? Because, of course, we have to acknowledge there are a lot of civilians as well losing their life in this conflict. In the meantime, we have to accept that Israel has to defend itself, but is the level of defending acceptable right now?
Well, I can't get into the day-to-day issues of what's happening. I think you also know what President Biden and Secretary Blinken have said there. They're very focused also on the humanitarian aspects, and we're providing humanitarian assistance as well. This is a huge challenge that Israel faces because of the way Hamas is operating, putting civilians at risk to protect itself. And doing so deliberately to draw further outrage. I mean, this is also an information war, and we're seeing information and disinformation being used in both conflicts, to be clear, and this is where we need to be clear-eyed and understand what's happening. And of course, you know, it's a delicate balancing act to wage. To try to go after Hamas and protect civilians at the same time. So we are trying to provide all the assistance we can to make this possible.
Well, since you mentioned disinformation, we see it not only used in times of conflicts, in times of war, but also in countries that we live in peace. United States, Romania, both, and not only. We are facing elections next year, both our countries. Yes. We have this cocktail of fake news, of disinformation, and also we have to add to this extremism. How can we get over it? Because it doesn't seem easy. It seems like the world is going into a very bad direction.
Yeah, it's a huge challenge. Disinformation, misinformation, deliberate use of fake news. All of these things are something that all of us democracies are struggling with, not only because this is being spread in some cases innocently by people who maybe don't understand the context, but it's being used as an aspect of destabilization, of war, of information warfare. This is going to be a challenge we're going to continue to face. I think the rise of social media has made it possible to spread information very quickly, and it seems to prize the sensational. So it's easy to grab attention for some outrageous claim or outlandish story, and it spreads very quickly, and then we find ourselves trying to catch up and explain what really happened, or to take down stories that are not accurate. This is where I think the institutions that we have built together, NATO, the EU, need to work together, both in terms of anticipating, reacting to, and taking down fake news, but also all of us have to work together on media literacy in the schools, in helping people distinguish what are legitimate and accurate sources of information, to be trained to recognize when there's manipulation going on. And this is going to be an ongoing process, I'm afraid. And we have to prepare. I think, just knowing that it's happening and being on the alert for it can make a huge change. And it's something I hope we can all do in preparation for our elections next year. I've seen many great programs. The U.S. Embassy supports programs like that here. And I hope that this spreads more in the schools. I was just up in Cluj at a Fulbright conference that we helped host on this issue of media literacy. We need to work with teachers. Teachers can also be tricked with fake news, and I hear this from teachers as well, that they also need support. So it's a big job, and it's something we're going to have to contend with next year.
Before I ask you the next question, I have to turn to the audience to see if anyone wants to ask you one question. Looks like not. Nobody wants to talk with the U.S. Embassy in Romania?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll continue. Do you think that people want to learn about this media literacy, about how to avoid manipulation, or people are now in the tendency of saying, we know everything, don't tell us what to do, don't teach us how to think?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to make generalizations. I mean, certainly you hear some of that. But in talking to teachers and in talking to students, actually, I think in some ways the students, some of them are quite media savvy because they've grown up with social media and they are wise to some of the tricks that they see, even if it's only in the commercial realm. I know my own children who are now in their 20s did go through media literacy training in their high school, and I was very impressed with their ability to look at a website or at a piece of news and to immediately, try to analyze it and say, and I mean, we used to teach this in the schools when we taught reading literature. I mean, reading literature is about kind of deconstructing and understanding. So I don't lose hope. I think the other thing that's important is for kind of the more healthy voices to speak out. Because I think one thing that happens with all this hate and vitriol that's spread through social media is it tends to make people more reluctant to speak out or to even be in the public sphere. This is something, there was a conference the last 2 days here for the Women, Peace and Security focal points of the UN, and one of the issues that was raised was the use of kind of bullying, cyberbullying and harassment to discourage people from going into politics, particularly targeting women. So it's important for us not to allow ourselves to be pushed out of the public sphere because we need sane, intelligent, wise voices, and we need to have because I'm convinced from the responses I see that there are a lot of very wise and smart people out there, but those are not the voices that get elevated in social media. So we need to support those voices as well.
Well, putting social media aside, we also have two types of voices when it comes to leaders, because some believe in democracy, some don't believe in democracy, and looks like the world we're living in is going in a very, very wrong direction. Do you think that the leaders, the big powers of this world can understand each other? Because it looks like the trust is no longer there.
Well, I mean, I think that's a very absolutist statement, and I know that many times in history we've thought that the world is going in a wrong direction, and of course parents always think that when they look at the next generation. I mean, I do think we have some strong and wise leaders now, and I think they are capable of addressing these issues. And I think when you look at what NATO has done, what the EU has done, certainly there are challenges, but I think we have shown that our alliance is stronger than ever. We've reinforced our defense and deterrence capabilities within the alliance. We have people who are actively trying to address the conflicts and find solutions. So I'm not a person that's pessimistic about the chances. Certainly we have challenges, but I don't. I think we also have the capacity. Again, it goes to, what do you listen to? You hear all the bad news and you can focus on that, but you can also recognize that there are many positive initiatives and efforts going on at the same time, and they don't somehow get the same attention always in the media.
Well, I'll turn with your optimist again towards the room. We have a question, two questions. Ladies first, if you don't mind. Somebody is helping us with the mic, perhaps? Yes, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. I'm Patty Morrissey. I'm from the United States, former government official. I worked information warfare for 9 years in the Pentagon for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. We were having a discussion last night about disinformation and the poison, the toxin that it puts into the bloodstream of the world. Our former panelist just a little while ago said we're in a hard power world. Do you, Ambassador, have any conversations with leaders in the region? Disinformation is a weapon. It's a weapon delivered on civilian platforms that we all become a target of through those platforms. Do you feel that we're at the level in terms of leadership in the region or in the world that we have to acknowledge disinformation as a weapon, and it can't just be a passive, what can we do to defend ourselves, but can we take more aggressive action around that?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think that this is disinformation, I absolutely agree, is a weapon. It's used very strategically, and it's also used to poison cooperation and trust in societies. And I think that's the larger issue for me, is maybe not the specific targeted uses, but the corrosive effect that it has over time in persuading people that they can't work with each other, or that the other side is the enemy. And that to me is the biggest issue. I do think that we are creating within NATO, within governments, institutions to try to address this, but it is, I don't know how to best describe it. It's as if we're playing catch-up. It's hard to anticipate and to respond to every use of disinformation. So this is definitely something where I think we need more research on what works. We need to look at how, have conversations with social media companies about how they spread or play a role in some of this. And I know the EU has looked at this issue. Also, companies themselves can take responsibility by how they identify and manage the platforms that they run. I mean, as I said earlier, I think we have a lot more work to do on this. I think, you know, things seem to come in waves and trends, and we're, I think, at the perhaps the peak of this type of use of disinformation. I like to hope that we will get wiser and smarter and it will become less effective over time. But of course, that's only speculation on my part. We can't just sit back and hope for that to happen. We have to find together methods and tactics that respond to this.
And maybe each of us should develop a little the critical thinking and to ask questions ourselves if something is real or not. Sir, please, your question.
Yeah, Madam Ambassador. My name is Steve Michael from California and Georgia. Thank you for the work that America and you are doing in this region. But my question is, what keeps you up at night when you think about the election coming up next year, reading the tea leaves? And what should Americans in this region who truly love Eastern Europe should be doing?
What keeps me up at night? It's always a funny
it's
question.
It's a good question, yeah.
The coffee that I'm joking. No, I think, again, you've probably already detected, I tend to be a more optimistic person because I like to think that I look at the broader context. And I think democracy is the broader context for us. And while we can imagine many negative scenarios, we can also imagine more positive scenarios. I mean, there have been many elections in Europe this year where things came out a little differently or better, than what people expected. So, my hope is that in the coming year, we can all, work with the media, hopefully, to raise the key issues to help educate voters so that people make wise decisions and that we can work together to kind of lower the level of vitriol. And I think the best way to do that is not to respond in kind, but to support other efforts that bring people together and find common ground. And that's, I think, the role for everyone in this room, for the politicians, hopefully. Again, maybe I sound a little too optimistic about this, but we can't lose hope and we can't give in to pessimism about the future. Just look around, look at some of the recent elections, and you see signs that voters are smarter than maybe some are given credit for.
Well, we still have time for one more question. We have the gentleman over here. Okay, if no, the mic will come to you. So no, it's behind you. It's right behind you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Radu Pieka, Wall Street. So my question for you will be, do you also see a rewriting of the past, a rewriting of the history, and not only in Russia, and not only on the unofficial level, not only on social media, but also on an official level, and on a regional level? To quote a title of a famous book, it was a long time ago and it never happened anyway. Because I think this is a major danger, and we saw how in Russia, for example, the memorial group was completely forbidden. And we see how the past is reinterpreted and it becomes a very, very fertile ground for propaganda. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, the sound wasn't great. The question is, do reinterpretation of the past? Yeah. Well, certainly one of the tools of disinformation is to try to rewrite history and give it a different aspect. And we see that, we see battles over history all the time, but I don't think that's anything new. I think that happens. I do think we're at an inflection point in history because at least in the West, I think we started to take democracy and our values for granted, and we maybe stopped, maybe we get a little we lost a sense of what's at stake in terms of defending democracy and defending our democratic values. And this has given opportunities for, other currents to develop. But I think, again, I think that in terms of history, it's always fair to have a debate about what happened in the past. But what's important is that we come to that debate based on democratic values and principles, the shared values that have made us so strong, and to once again speak out and defend those values. That's the most important thing we can do. Not only the values, but to recognize that the inclusion is important in those values. We spoke about elections. We have an opportunity next year in both our countries to increase the inclusion of women in elections, to have to really walk the walk in what we believe in democracy. So, I recognize what you say about people trying to rewrite history, but I think it's part and parcel of a larger challenge that we face.
Well, let's take this as a conclusion. Ambassador, thank you so much for this conversation, and thank you all for being with us.
Thanks very much for having me.